This is class 14 of my arithmetic course. Today we're going to be covering mixed numbers. Now, if you didn't do the homework from class 13, you're in the wrong place. Go back and do that homework. Remember, you can't go anywhere in this class unless you do the homework. All right, so the first thing that we're going to cover is something called an improper fraction. Do you notice something a little weird about this fraction? What do you notice about that? Well, this is something that we haven't seen before. The numerator is bigger than the denominator. And that's why it's called an improper fraction. What that is, you can read this as 7/4. Okay? So we have, as you can see, we have 4/4 here plus 3/4 equals 7/4. 4/4 plus 3/4 equals 7/4. Remember, we have a common denominator. So 4/4 plus 3/4. Add these two together, they have a common denominator, so they equal 7/4. So what we're doing is we're going backwards. We're taking 7/4 and we're converting it into 4/4 plus 3/4. And then the 4/4, well, the 4/4, as you can see, is just one whole. That's like one whole candy bar. So you can just change 4/4 into 1. That's an extremely important concept. If you have any number, like 6 out of 6, that's 1. You have 100 out of 100, that's 1. So on and so forth. Because it's like having a pizza cut into 4 slices, but all 4 slices are there. Well, if all 4 slices are there, then it's a whole pizza. You can just write it as one whole. All right, so we have one whole, and I'm going to go ahead and keep the rest of the equation, or the expression. And then at that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the addition sign, just to make it to where I can write it in a easier notation with fewer symbols. And I'm just going to write the whole number 1 and the fraction right next to it. So that means 1 plus 3/4. It's the same thing as this expression. It means the same thing. We're just taking away the positive sign to make it easier to write. So this is what's called a mixed number. It's mixed because you have a whole number and a fraction together. So again, this is an improper fraction. This is a mixed number. We can convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. And we can also go backwards and convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. Now, in upper math courses, the course after this, pre-algebra, and pretty much all the courses after this, it's actually going to be easier in calculations to use improper fractions. Mixed numbers are useful, but you're going to use them maybe about 1% of the time. But in this class, you have to know mixed numbers quite a bit. There's a lot of mixed numbers in arithmetic. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to try some practice problems, and we're going to learn to convert mixed numbers into, we're going to convert improper fractions. These are all improper fractions. We're going to convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. So here's the algorithm. We're going to use the same logic we used up here, but we're just going to make it faster now. So here's the fastest way to do it. How many times does 6 go into 13? Well, it doesn't go in evenly, but 6 times 2 is 12. So that's our whole number. And 13 minus 12 is 1, so the remainder is 1. That goes in the numerator of the fraction. And the 6, you just rewrite in the denominator. So how many times does 6 go into 13? 2 times, with the remainder 1, and rewrite the denominator. So this is very easy. All these problems are very easy. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next 10, 15 problems. But at the risk of boring you, for just give me about a minute here, I'm going to actually explain again why that algorithm works. How many times does 6 go into 13? 2 times, remainder 1, rewrite the denominator. Where does that mean? I don't want you to be completely ignorant about what the algorithms mean. The algorithms in this course and the courses from now till whenever you finish your math sequence, the algorithms are pretty sophisticated, and you don't have to know the meaning of all of them. But I do want you to at least know a little bit about where this comes from. So you don't have to know what I'm about to show you, but I just want to show you the meaning of all this. So 17/5, we're going to break that up. We're going to do the same thing that we did up here, just to show you what's going on here. So 17/5, I'm going to break it into a sum. And it's just like saying, 3 is equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1. I'm breaking 3 into a sum. That's all I'm doing. No trickery here. So 17/5 is 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5. And if you add up all those fifths, remember you have a common denominator. The denominator does not change. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus another 5 is 15. So that's 15/5. All right? But you have 17/5. So you need 2 more fifths to get to 17/5. There's no trickery here. This is not complicated. It's about as simple as you can get here. 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 2/5 is 17/5. This is all stuff that you should have learned in the previous classes. So we have all these 5/5. Why did we break everything into 5/5? I could have broken it up into 6/5, and then 1/5, and then 10/5. Why did I break it up this way? Well, because these are whole numbers. Each one of these 5/5 is one whole. So it's 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2/5. Okay, let me write those plus signs a little smaller so you can see what's going on here. So now we just add up all those ones to make 3. So we have 3 plus 2/5, and you know what's going to happen. We're going to make it a mixed number. We just take away the plus sign so we can write it easier and just make it 3 and 2/5. So that's the logic behind what we did here. How many times does 6 go into 13? Goes in 2 times, remainder 1, and 6 is left over. So how does that apply to all this? Well, how many times does 5 go into 17? Well, it goes 3 times. 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. That's 3 times. And 3 times 5 is 15. And the remainder is 2, because 17 minus 15 is 2. All right, I'm looking at these circles, trying to figure out how I'm going to get rid of those. There you go. All right, so 3 and 2/5. So that's the procedure. But don't worry about all that stuff. Don't get, don't be afraid, because we're not going to do that, every time. We're not going to do all that complicated stuff. We're going to do it the fast way. Remember, in math, you always learn things the fast way. All right, so this is an improper fraction, because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So we have to convert it to a mixed number. So here's the fast way. You ready? Let's get to it. How many times does 9 go into 65? 7 times. That's your whole number. 9 times 7 is 63. That's you add up 9 7 times, you get 63. 65 minus 63 is 2. That's the remainder. And the denominator just goes in the bottom. I'm not going to keep explaining the algorithm over and over and over again, because that's just going to bore you. That's all you have to know, is what we just did right there. All right, I'm going to do another one, and then after I do this one, you're going to start doing these yourself. How many times does 6 go into 17? It goes in 2 times. 6 times 2 is 12. 17 minus 12 is 5. And just rewrite your denominator. So again, 65 ninths is the same thing as 7 wholes plus 2 ninths. 17/6 is the same thing as 2 wholes plus 5/6. All right, so why don't you try, let's see here. Why don't you try the next 3, and when you're done, we'll come back and do them together. Pause the video. All right, we're back. How many times is 4 going to 15? It goes 3 times. That's your whole number. 4 times 3 is 12. 15 minus 12 is 3. And rewrite the denominator. I'm going to have to find a thinner pen here. All right, how many times does 3 go into 25? By the way, I should have mentioned I want you to do 6 and 7. Go ahead and do 6 and 7. Pause the video. When you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. How many times is 3 going to 25? Let's see. 3 times 8 is 24. It doesn't go in evenly, but 3 times 8 is 24. 25 minus 24 is 1. Rewrite your denominator. This stuff is really easy. No big whoop. All right. How many times is 9 going to 87? 9. And by the way, if you got that right, good. If you didn't get it right, don't worry. We're going to do a lot of practice problems. How many times is 9 going to 87? 9 times 8 is 72. We got a lot more to go. 9 times 9 is 81. I think that's going to be it. Can't go in any more times. 9 times 9 is 81. 87 minus 81 is 6. And rewrite your denominator. Now in this problem, if you got 9 6/9, that's correct, but you're going to get a point taken off. Any idea why you're going to get a point taken off? It's right here. We have to reduce. If you know your multiplication facts, you know that. If you're struggling with your multiplication facts and you didn't learn them like I told you to, then you're going to be having problems in every single class. So we can divide both sides of this fraction by 3 because I know my multiplication facts. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. All right. So that's changing a mixed number, or excuse me, that's changing an improper fraction to a mixed number. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to change these numbers a little bit. Change that to a 4. Change that to a 10. Change that to a 11. And change this to a 5. All right. So why don't you try 8 through 11? Please try 8 through 11. And pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. How many times is 4 going to 10? It goes 2 times, remainder 2. You're left with 2 2/4. All right, but you have to reduce that. It reduces to 1/2. Divide both sides by 2 and you get 1/2. How many times is 10 going to 36? It goes 3 times. 3 times 10 is 30. 36 minus 30 is 6. So you have 3 6/10, but it turns out that we can reduce that also, so it becomes 3 3/5. All right, now how many times is 11 going to 72? Let's see. 11 times 5 is 55. Not enough. 11 times 7 is 77. It's too much, so it's going to be 6. 11 times 6 is 66. Remainder is 8. And that can't be reduced. 66 plus 8. Let me just check these real quick. 66 plus 8 is 74. That can't be right. I must have done something wrong here. Oh yeah, that should be a 6. I'm sorry. 66 plus 6 is 72. 36 over 10. 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I was right. So if you got the right answer, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, that's fine. We're going to do a lot more of these later on in the course. Now the last three problems, oh actually I'm sorry, I forgot to do 11. 5 goes into 2 times remainder 2. All right, number 12, the last two problems, these are special because these are improper fractions, right? But 7 goes into 28 evenly. So 7 goes in 4 times, you're done. So isn't that interesting? You can write a whole number as an improper fraction. That's going to be extremely important later on in the course. We're going to go back over this and actually use that. And in fact, we're going to do it today because you can convert a whole number to an improper fraction. That's going to help us can convert a mixed number to an improper fraction. 48 divided by 6 is 8. So that's another example. All right, so now, again, we converted an improper fraction to a mixed number. Now we're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. All right? So I'm going to show you the fast way to do this. 2 times 5 is 10. Add 10 to 3, you get 13. And rewrite the denominator. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9, and rewrite the denominator. Easy. Now, how did we do that? Well, here's how we did it. We changed 2 to an improper fraction. See, we have 8 and 4 up here that we changed to improper fractions. We can do the same thing to 2, so let me show you how. 2 is just 2 over 1. Okay, and we're adding that to 3/5, right? 2 and 3/5. 2 and 3/5. So remember, there's no addition sign between here, but that's what a mixed number means. It means you're adding the two quantities. So this, because we're now writing this as a fraction, we can just take 2 over 1. We can multiply both sides by 5. So 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 times 5 is 5. 10/5 is the same thing as 2 wholes. And we add the 3/5, and you got 10/5 plus 3/5 is, you guessed it, 13/5. Now, you don't have to think about that every time you do the problem. You know, please don't complain that I'm showing you some complicated thing. You don't have to think about that. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is the quick method that I just showed you here. The only reason that I showed you all that stuff is just to let you know that this stuff isn't just falling out of the sky. You know, there's a reason for it. All right, so again, how do you convert a mixed number to an improper fraction? You take these two numbers and you multiply them. Then you add that product to 3, and that goes in your numerator. And then you just rewrite the denominator. All right, so there's 3 steps. Multiply these two, step 1. Step 2, add that product, whatever that multiplication gave you, add it to 3 to get this number. And then the last step is just rewrite the denominator. All right, so I want you to try 16 and 17. When you come back, we'll do it together. Pause the video. All right, we're back. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 4 is 31. Rewrite the denominator. All right. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 1 is 17. Rewrite the denominator. Now, if you didn't get those right, then just go back and figure out what you did wrong. No problem. If you got those right, pat yourself on the back, and we're ready to go on to the next problems. I hope I'm not going too fast for you, but that's the good thing about these videos is you can pause them anytime you want to. So do number 18 through 21, and when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. 5 times, let's zero in on this. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 plus 2 is 27. Rewrite the denominator. Again, we're converting from a mixed number to an improper fraction. 7 times 10 is 70. 70 plus 3 is 73. Rewrite the denominator. Number 20, 8 times 7 is 56. 56 plus 5 is 61. Rewrite the denominator. 8 times 11 is 88. 88 plus 3 is 91. Rewrite the denominator. So 91 elevenths is the same thing as 8 and 3 elevenths, because there's 8 holes inside the 91 elevenths. All right. So again, the explanation, you just take 2 and write it over 1. You can always write a whole number as over 1, and then you just multiply both sides of this fraction by 8, because we want a common denominator of 8. So you get 16 over 8. Obviously, 8 times 1 is 8, so that gives us a common denominator. So times this side by 8 times this side by 8. That's the fundamental principle of fractions. Don't tell me you don't know the fundamental principle of fractions. You know it. We did it about 1,000 times. So now 2 becomes 16 over 8. So 16 over 8 plus 1 over 8 is 17 over 8. So again, that's the slow way to do it, the way that explains how to do the math. But in my experience, most students, they really don't care if the math has meaning. They just want to know, what do I do, and let's just get it over with. So that's what we're doing here. All right. So we learned how to convert an improper fraction. First of all, we learned what an improper fraction is. What is an improper fraction? An improper fraction is when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. We learned how to convert an improper fraction to a mixed number, and a mixed number is a number that has a whole number and a fraction. And then we went backwards and we learned how to convert a mixed number to an improper fraction. So now we're going into adding mixed numbers. That was your introduction into improper fractions and mixed numbers. We're going to do addition and subtraction of mixed numbers today, and then we're going to be done. So let's get into it. Now I'm going to change this so the denominator is the same. I'm going to make that, let's make it, let's make it 3/8. So you see how the denominators are the same here? So this is going to be really easy. So the way you do this is you add the whole numbers. 2 plus 5 is 7. And 3/8 plus 1/8 is 4/8. And it reduces, of course, to 7 1/2. So again, there's just addition signs between these whole numbers and the fractions, so you can just add them separately. You remember doing that? So, but we don't have any addition signs here, so you need to understand what's going on. So just add the whole numbers and then add the fractions. All right, but in the next problem, we don't have a common denominator. So let's rewrite this. Let's rewrite the 6, and then the common denominator is going to be 12. Multiply both sides of this fraction by 3, and you get 3 12s. Multiply both sides of this fraction by 2, and you get 2 12s. So that's a good way to show your work. So we converted 6 1/4 to 6 3/12, and we converted 2 1/6 to 2 2/12. So now the rest is pretty easy. 6 plus 2, add the whole numbers first. 6 plus 2 is 8. 3 12s plus 2 12s is 5 12s. All right. So, yeah, I think you're going to need to show your work on that. When you get comfortable with adding fractions, you can do it in your head, but I think you're going to need to show this work at this particular level of your math education. So let's go ahead and get a common denominator here. So 56 is going to be the common denominator. So multiply both sides of this fraction by 8, and you get 16 over 56. Multiply both sides of this fraction by 7, and you get 21 over 56. And now we're ready to proceed. 3 plus 1 is 4. That's the whole number. 1656 plus 2156 is 3756. And there you go. And 37 over 56 cannot be reduced. 31 plus 37. That's correct. All right, so do you want to give it a go? Number 25, pause the video, see what you can do, and when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. So 1 1/2 becomes 1 3/6. So now you have a common denominator. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3/6 plus 1/6 is 4/6. But remember to reduce. So it becomes 2/3. Remember, when you reduce, you divide both sides, in this case, by 2, because the greatest common factor of 4 and 6 is 2. Not that you really have to use the greatest common factor, but it's the fastest way to do it. All right, so why don't you try number 26, pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. The lowest common multiple, or lowest common denominator of 9 and 6 is going to be 18. So multiply both sides of this fraction by 2, and you get 4/18. Multiply both sides of this fraction by 3, and you get 3/18. I'm just double checking that. 3/18. All right. 3 plus 4 is 7. 4/18 plus 3/18 is 7/18. All right. So why don't you try 27, pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. Common denominator is 22. So we have 11 over 22 and 6 over 22. 9 plus 3 is 12, and 11 over 22 plus 6 over 22 is 17 over 22. And there you go. So if you've gotten these correct, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't get them right, then that's okay. You can go back and figure out what you did wrong. 11, 6, 17. Just double checking my answers. On to number 28. All right, number 28. Find the sum of 9 5/8 and 4 1/4. All right, let's write the problem over here. 9 5/8 plus 4 1/4. So why don't you go ahead and do that problem, and when you're done, we'll come back and do it together. All right, we're back. So common denominator, 13 7/8. So if you got 13 7/8, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't do it correctly, that's okay. We're going to do another one. What is 3 5/8 added to 10 1/6? Go and set up the problem. Pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. 3 5/8 plus 10 1/6 equals 15 over 20. Let's see here. (13 and 19 over 20, 19/24). 13 and 19/24. All right, 15. All right, so let's go to number 30. Now we're adding a whole number plus a mixed number. This is going to be really easy. 12 plus 3 is 15, and just write the fraction right next to it. No big deal. 8 plus 5 is 13, and write the fraction right next to it. So these are pretty easy. Adding a mixed number to a whole number is very easy. So try 32 and 33, and when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. 6 plus 9 is 15. Write the fraction right next to it. 8 plus 10 is 18. Write the fraction right next to it. All right, so now we're going into something a little bit different. We're still adding mixed numbers, no big deal, same principle. But something different is going to happen here. Watch what happens. So let's get a common denominator. All right. So we have a common denominator. Now let's go ahead and add up like we usually do. So 13 plus 9 is, let's see, that's 22. And 7/10 plus 6/10 is 13/10. So what's different about this problem is that we have our whole number. That's why that's the same as all the other problems. But now our fraction is it's an improper fraction. We can't leave it as an improper fraction. So what we have to do is we have to take 13 over 10. Go ahead and change that to a mixed number. So you have 22 plus 13 over 10. Now, again, we learned how to change an improper fraction to a mixed number, right? So here's the algorithm. How many times does 10 go into 13? It goes one time. So you put your 1. 10 times 1 is 10. 13 minus 10 is 3. And then just rewrite your denominator. All right. So our final answer, 22 plus 1 is 23. And write the 3/10 next to it. So the difference for that problem is that when you added these two fractions, you got a number that was greater than 1. So you then had to add that number to the sum of 9 and 13 to get our final 23. All right, let's do another one of those together. So let's get a common denominator here. All right, so 1 and 9/12 plus 4 and 10/12. So 1 plus 4 is 5, and then 9/12 plus 10/12 is 19/12. But if you change 19/12 to a mixed number, 12 goes into 19 one time, so we're going to go ahead and add that 1 to this 5 to make 6. And then 12 times 1 is 12, 19 minus 12 is 7. And then rewrite your denominator. I may have gone a little fast on that, but it's the same principle here. So you have 12/12 inside here. 12/12 makes one whole, so you can take the 12/12 out as one whole, and it adds to the 5 to become 6. Okay, then when you take the 12/12 out, how many 12s do you have left over? Well, 19/12 minus 12/12 is 7/12. So why don't you go ahead and try 36, and what you're going to find is that when you add these two fractions, they're going to be greater than 1, so you're going to have to convert the improper fraction to a mixed number and add the whole number to this number, and then your remaining fraction is going to be written there. Pause the video and try 36, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. So now we have common denominators. 54. 7 plus 11 is 18. And 35 over 63 plus 54 over 63 is 89 over 63. Over 63. So now we have to convert 89 over 63 to a mixed number. 63 goes into 89 one time, and the remainder is going to be whatever 89 minus 63 is. So that would be 26. So we're going to give we take 63 63rds and give that to the 18. 63 over 63 is just one whole, so it becomes 19. And then the remainder, 89 minus 63 was 26, and then rewrite the denominator as usual. And I don't think 26 over 63 can be reduced. No, it cannot. 83, 20. All right. So if you got the right answer, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't get the right answer, that's totally fine. We're going to go on to other problems. Or figure out what you did wrong, of course, and then we're going to do a lot more problems for practice. All right, number 37, see what you can do with that one, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. Let's see here. All right, 21 over 15. So now convert the improper fraction to a mixed number. Give the 1 to the 5, it becomes 6. Remainder is 6. You got 6 over 15. All right. But we can't leave it like that because 6 over 15 can be reduced. Remember, we learned back in class 11 or whatever class that was, you can never leave a fraction in a form that's not reduced. We want to put it into lowest terms, so we can divide both sides by 3 to get 2 over 5. So if you got this answer, you're correct, but you're going to get a point off if you didn't reduce the fraction. All right. So now how did I know that 3 times 2 is 6 and 3 times 5 was 15? Well, I know my multiplication facts, and you should have learned your multiplication facts too. Try 38, and when you're done, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. So now we have a common denominator. 2 plus 3 is 5. 16/18 plus 15/18 is 31/18. But again, we have an improper fraction here. And we end up with 6 and 13/18. So if you got that one correct, pat yourself on the back. And if you didn't get it correct, then don't worry, we're going to do more problems. I don't know how many more of these we're going to have, but let's see. 38, now we're on to 39. So at this point, why don't you go ahead and try the next 3 problems, 39 through 41, and when you come back, we'll do them together. In fact, you can just leave the tape on and I'll just go ahead and do them with you. And when I'm done, I'll say pause the video, so I won't go forward too much. All right, I'm done with 39 through 41, and if you're still going, go ahead and push pause. All right, so you should be done with 39 through 41. If you got these answers, then pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, no big deal. We'll go on to 42 and 43 and 44. Now, the difference between these three problems and the ones we've done so far is now our sum involves more than two numbers, but it's no big deal. It's just the same concept, so just more practice here. So let's see. We'll do the first one together, and then you can do 43 and 44 on your own. So let's get a common denominator with all these fractions. So the common denominator would be 18. Now we have a common denominator. We can go ahead and add the whole numbers. 2 plus 18 is 20. 6 eighteenths plus 2 eighteenths is 8 eighteenths. 8 eighteenths plus 3 eighteenths is 11 eighteenths, and you're done. So it's just the same. It's the same principle. It's just you're adding more than two numbers. No big deal. Why don't you go ahead and try 43 and 44, and when you're done, we'll come back and do them together. I put an extra plus sign there. Sorry. All right, now we're back. Let's get a common denominator. All right, add the whole numbers. 1 plus 89 is 90. 90 plus 8 is 98. 10 over 55 plus 7 over 55 is 17 over 55. So if you got that one correct, that was a big one. Good job. If you didn't, that's okay. We have a lot more problems to practice. So number 44, pause the video, see what you can do, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. Let's get a common denominator here. And the common denominator is also the least common multiple of 5 and 20, just in case you were wondering that from the last classes. So now we have a common denominator. 1/5 became 4 over 20. So add the whole numbers. 3 plus 15 is 18. And 7/20 plus 4/20 is 11/20. And there you go. All right. So that's addition of mixed numbers. We added a mixed number with a whole number, and we added mixed numbers with fractions and mixed numbers with mixed numbers, and in the classes before this, you added just fractions with fractions and so on and so forth. So now we're going to subtracting mixed numbers. Subtracting is a little bit more difficult, but it's pretty easy. So let's do the first couple together. So you notice here we don't have a common denominator. So that's the first thing we need to worry about. So we have 5 and 8/14. That's too thick, I'm sorry. Gotta go back to the smaller thickness of my pen. 5 and 4/7 becomes 5 and 8/14. And now we have a common denominator. So now we're ready to subtract. So this is pretty easy. It's just 5 minus 2 is 3 for the whole numbers, and 8/14 minus 3/14 is 5/14. So that particular problem was actually not too bad. There's going to be some tricky ones as we go along, but that one wasn't too bad. All right, so as you can see, subtraction is the same thing as addition, same algorithms. You're just subtracting instead of adding. So why don't you try? Let's see here, 3. Well, why don't you try 46 through 48? And let's see, 4. Why don't you go ahead and try 46 through 49, and when you come back, we'll do them together. Actually, I'm just going to keep going. You can keep the video on so you don't have to wait for me to do these. All right. Now, if you're still going, go ahead and pause. If you're still doing the problems, pause the video. And when you come back, you can look at all these answers. And if you didn't do one of them correctly or all of them correctly, just see what you did wrong and go back and fix it. No big deal. All right. So you should be done with all those problems. Again, it's no rush. This is not a race. Okay. So now we're going on to number 50. Let's see here. So why don't you go ahead and try 50 and 51. And when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. Subtract 1 2/7 from 4 3/5. Now I just noticed that this problem is kind of a trick problem because it says subtract 1 2/5 from 4 3/5. I should have warned you about that before I told you to do it. I'm sorry. So it's going to be 4. The 4 3/5 is going to be written first. 4 3/5 minus 1 2/7. It's quite possible that you did it the other way around. You did 1 2/7 minus 4 3/5. If you did that, I'm sorry, I should have warned you about that. Again, when you're reading a word problem, it's often the case where they're going to try to confuse you by changing the wording. So 4 3/5 minus 1 2/7. All right. 4 minus 1 is 3. 21 minus 10 is 11. So if you got that one correct, pat yourself on the back. You're doing good. If you didn't get it correct, that's okay. We're going to do more of these problems. Now, if you got this one correct, again, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't get it correct, then that's fine. Just go back and see what you did wrong. 8/18 minus 3/18, 5/18. Just double checking my work there. All right, so now we're going on to some slightly different problems here. These are going to be really easy. I'm going to do 2 of them myself, and you can do the other 2. 2 3/8 minus 1 is 1 3/8. You got the picture there? That was easy. You just subtract this whole number from this whole number. No big deal. 4 9/10 minus 2 is 2 9/10. So these are easy. Sometimes we get a break. We catch a break here. And these just turned out to be easy. So why don't you try 54 and 55. Pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. You should have 3 and 10 over 61, and you should have 3 and 8/9. So again, those are pretty simple. All right. So let's do a couple more here. In fact, these are all the same. I don't know why I wrote so many of the same types of problems, but these are so easy. So why don't you go ahead and do 56 through 58. And when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. 5 4/9 minus 4 is 1 4/9. And I don't need to keep saying the numbers. I don't want to bore you here. Let's speed up here. So if you got those answers, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, figure out what you did wrong. All right, so on to 59. So this problem is pretty much the same. The only difference between these is that you see how you have the same whole number? I'm trying to give you every single variation of the problem because I don't want to cheat you out of the math. You need to see every type of variation in these problems. That's the definition of a good problem set, is that it shows you every variation. You don't want to get stuck on a test not knowing how to do a problem because the homework that you did didn't have enough variety in it. So 5 3/4 minus 5 1/2. So 5 minus 5 is 0, and 3/4 minus 1/2 is 1/4. I just did that we should probably show a little bit of work. So 5 3/4 minus 5 2/4 equals 1/4 because 5 minus 5 is 0 and 3/4 minus 2/4 is 1/4. So no big deal. So why don't you try 60 and 61, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. So 8 minus 8 is 0, and, well, I'm just going to do it. My instinct is to go faster here, but I don't want to go too fast for you get the point. Let's see here. All right, so we have 11 over 56. If you got that one correct, Pat yourself on the back. All right, 3 and 9/12 minus 3 and 2/12 equals 7/12. So if you got those answers, then good job. If you didn't, just go back and see what you did wrong. Now on to 62. 62 is the same problem, so let's just go ahead and do it together. I'm going to do this in my, well, no, you should show work. Again, my instinct is to do it in my head, but I want to make sure that you're showing your work. All right, so 5/12. All right, so now we're going into something a little bit different. Now we're subtracting a fraction from a mixed number. So that's not as easy as subtracting a whole number from a mixed number. We still have to get a common denominator, but no big deal, it's the same thing. So there's really no difference from the problems we did before. You just get a common denominator. And subtract, so 5 minus nothing, there's no whole number there, so it's 5 minus nothing would just be 5, and 16 over 56 minus 7 over 56 would be 9 over 56, and 9 over 56 cannot be reduced. And by the way, how do I know that it cannot be reduced? Well, I factor it in my head. Remember the factor method? I know, because I know my multiplication facts, I know 9 is 3 times 3, and 56 is 7 times 8. Then if I keep factoring, there's no common factors. Nothing cancels out. See, there's no common factors. So that's how I know. I did that in my head, and that's how I knew that I could not reduce 9 over 56. All right. So why don't you try the next 3 problems? Pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do them together. All right, we're back. You can just keep the video on, actually, if you want to go and try them now, so you don't have to watch me if you want to jump ahead. All right, 66 is kind of a trick problem. Just remember that. Is it 2/9 minus 17 and 5/11, or is it 17 5/11 minus 2/9? They're not the same thing. If you got 64 and 65 correct, then good job. '66 is 17 and 23 over 99. So if you got all those correct, good job. And now we're going to go on to the next problems. 20, 23. Just double checking my work from the last problem. All right, so on 67, now something different is going to happen. So this is going to be, I mean, so far it's been just as easy as the addition problems, but now like I said, something different is going to happen. So you'll see. All right, so let's go ahead and get a common denominator. All right, so now we have a common denominator, but something weird is going to happen right here. 9 minus 4 is 5. Nothing weird there. That's fine. But 2, 6 minus 5, 6? What's going on there? 2, 6 minus 5, 6, that's impossible. That would actually give you a negative number. So we can't do that. We don't know negative numbers in this class. You're going to learn negative numbers in the next class, not in this class. So we have to do something called borrowing. So we're going to borrow from this 9, and we're going to borrow 1 whole from the 9. We're going to borrow 1 whole from this 9, and we're going to give that 1 whole to this fraction. All right. So the 9 is going to become 8. And the 1 whole, so we're going to add 1 to 2 6. But we're going to write the 1 in a special form so we can add it to the 2 6. Okay, this is what we did before when we were converting from a mixed number to a whole number. So we're going to write the 1 as 6 over 6. Again, remember, you can write 1 as 4 over 4 or 20 over 20 or 32 over 32. You can write it any way you want. But because we're trying to add it to 2 6, we're going to take that 1 which we borrowed from the 9, and we're going to write it as 6 6. And we're going to add 6 over 6 plus 2 over 6 to get 8 over 6. And I'm just going to rewrite these other numbers. So what happened here? 9 and 2 6 became 8 and 8 6. They're the same thing. They're just written in a different form. All right, so why did we do that? And if you didn't catch on to that, that's okay. We're going to do that. We're going to do the problem again. No big deal. But why did we do that? Because we couldn't subtract 5 6 from 2 6. We get a negative number. But now look what happens. We can still subtract 4 from 8, so 8 minus 4 is 4. But now 8 6 minus 5 6, we can do that. That's not a negative number. Then you get 3 6. 8 minus 5 is 3. So then 3 6 reduces to 1/2. And there you go. Now again, I know that was a little weird, but don't worry. We're going to try another problem before you attempt one on your own. Or maybe you want to go ahead and attempt one. That's fine. I'll try to leave number 67 so you can see that. All right, so let's get a common denominator as usual. All right, so we have a common denominator. But again, we cannot subtract 9 over 24 minus 20 over 24. We can subtract 3 from 6. That's no big deal. That's not the problem. The problem is not that we can't subtract 3 from 6. The problem is that we can't subtract 20 over 24 from 9 over 24. That's the problem. So we have to borrow from this 6. We have to borrow 1 whole from this 6 and give it to the 9 over 24. So we're going to borrow from the 6. It's going to become 5. And then we're going to add 1, the one that we took from 6 to 9 over 24. But we're not going to add 1. We're going to add 24 over 24. Now, why did I choose to add it? Why did I choose to write the 1 as 24 over 24? Because there's a 24 here. We need a common denominator. So again, you can write 1 as anything. You can write it as 5 over 5 or 2 over 2. We choose to write it as 24 over 24 because if you add 24 over 24 to 9 over 24, you get whatever that would be. I think it's 33 over 24. 24 over 24 plus 9 over 24 is 33 over 24. So now we can subtract the fractions. Let me just double check that math real quick. 24 plus 9. Pretty sure that, yeah, that's correct. So now we can subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2, of course. And 33 over 24 minus 20 over 24 is 13 over 24. So again, the difference for these problems is that you have to borrow from these numbers. You have to borrow, or excuse me, you have to borrow from these whole numbers. You have to borrow from all these whole numbers. All right, so hopefully you've got a pretty good idea of how these work at this point. So why don't you go ahead and try, let's see here. Well, let's do 69 together. Why don't you go ahead and try it? I'm going to try it with you, and when I'm done, I'm going to say pause the video, so I'm not going to go ahead of you. I want to do this one with you, so we can, so I can make sure that you that you've got this. So go ahead and try it, and we'll do it together here. So get a common denominator. And once you have a common denominator, then you have the problem where we can't subtract. So go ahead and try that, and I'm going to do it too. All right, don't let me rush you. Pause the video if I'm going ahead here. All right, so you should be at this point. Again, it's not a race. You should be at that point. So now, again, we borrowed just to explain how this is working. We could not subtract. We couldn't do 4 over 18 minus 7 over 18 because we get a negative number. So we had to borrow from the 10. It became a 9. And then we added that 1 that we borrowed from the 10 to 4 over 18. But we added the 1 in a particular way. We didn't add it as 1 plus 4 over 18. We added it as 18 over 18 plus 4 over 18. Now don't be confused by that. It's very simple. 1, you can write it as 18 over 18. Why did we choose 18 over 18? Because we have to add it to 18ths, 4 18ths. All right, so we took 18 over 18 and added it to 4 over 18 and got 22 over 18. And now we can subtract 7 18ths from 22 18ths. And you should have got 5 and 15 18ths. But let's see, let me double check that math. Yeah, that's correct. If you left it like that, you might lose a point on the test. In fact, you will lose a point on the test. This is correct. It's not wrong. But you have to reduce. So divide both sides by 3 and you get 5 over 6. All right, so if you got that one right, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, no problem. We'll do some more here. So why don't you try 70 through 72. Pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. Let's get a common denominator. All right, so we have a common denominator, 8 minus, but we can't do it yet because we can't do 16 minus 21. So we have to borrow from the 8. So we borrowed from the 8. We borrowed 1 from the 8, gave to the 16 over 24, and it became 40 over 24. Because we added 24 over 24 plus 16 over 24 equals 40 over 24. I'm just double checking my math here. All right, everything looks good. Now we can subtract. 7 minus 1 is 6. 40 over 24 minus 21 over 24 is 19 over 24. And there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and speed through these because I already told you to do them. You can fast forward to the answer if you want. So we got 1 and 5, 6 for that one. Good job. All right, so if you got 2 and 20 over 49, good job. So now we're going to 73. Now this one's going to be a little bit different because you're not going to have a whole number when you're done. But no big deal, same process. So let's get a common denominator. And if you're choosing 24 as the common denominator, that's fine, but that's not the lowest common. The lowest common is 12. All right, so now, again, we can't do this. We have to borrow from the 5. The 5 becomes 4, and the 2 twelfths becomes 14 twelfths. Now 4 minus 4 is 0, and 14 twelfths minus 3 twelfths is 11 twelfths. So that one was different just because we don't have a whole number. No big deal. All right, so why don't you try, let's see here. Try 74 and 75, and when you come back, we'll do them together. Actually, you can just, if you want, you can just keep the video going, and I'll just do them with you. Whoops, I'm sorry, I should have left that so you can see 73. Alright, so if you're still going, pause the video. Those should be your three answers. And we're ready to go on to number 76. So now this is a little different because we're subtracting a fraction from a mixed number. So it's just one more variation here. I'm giving you all the variations of all the different problems. Alright. So same situation. Get a common denominator. And we can't subtract 15 over 35 from 14 over 35, so we have to borrow from the 9. It becomes 8. The one whole that we borrowed from the 9 is, we're going to write it as 35 over 35 because we're going to add it to 14 over 35, so we're going to have to write the whole number as 35ths, so we can add it to 14 35ths. 35 over 35 plus 14 over 35 is 49 over 35. Let me just check the math on that. That looks good. And we're ready to subtract, so no big deal. We're just subtracting nothing from 8. So 8 minus nothing would just be 8. And 49 minus 15. That'll be, I think, 34. Let me double check the math on that. Yep, that looks right. So these problems are kind of the same thing, I guess, just slight variations. So why don't you try 70, let's see here. Try 77 through 79. And when you come back, we'll do them together. Or you can just let me do these while you do them yourself, and then when I get to 79, I'll say pause the video. I won't go ahead of you. So go ahead and try these. Alright, if you're still working, go ahead and pause the video and keep going. And when you come back, we'll look at the answers. Alright, we're back, so those are the answers. Let's go on to number 80. So again, we're just doing one more variation here. Let's see here. So we'll do the first one together. So the difference here is we're subtracting a mixed number from a whole number. Mixed number from a whole number. So let's see here. So what we have to do is, obviously there's no fraction here, so we can't subtract 4/5 from nothing. So we have to borrow from the 8, it'll become 7. And then we want to subtract 4/5. So we write the one that we borrowed from the 8, that becomes 5/5. So I changed 8. All I did was I changed 8 into 7 and 5/5. Because again, 5/5 is just one whole. And remember, when you mix numbers, that's the same thing as 7 plus 5/5. 5/5 is one whole, so it's just 7 plus 1 is 8. This is all just the language of math that you're going to have to get used to. Alright, so now I can subtract 7 minus 3 is 4, and 5/5 minus 4/5 is 1/5. And so that's how these work. Pretty simple. The next one you're going to write is 4 and 8/8 minus 2 and 1/8. 4 and 8/8 minus 2 and 1/8. And why did I choose 8/8? I could have chose anything to write that whole number that I borrowed from the 5. I could have chose anything. But I chose 8/8 because I'm going to be subtracting 1/8. I have to have a common denominator. So why don't you go ahead and do that? And the final answer would be 2 and 7/8. Alright, so we tried those two problems together. So now you try 82 and 83. Pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do them together. Alright, we're back. Did you get 2 and 7/9? Let's see. Yep, that's correct. And the next one. Did you get 9 and 1/2? That's what I got. Alright, so if you got those right, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, no big deal. Actually, I think that's it for those. We're now on to the word problems. We had quite a few problems. I think we had more problems in this class than any other class, but the good news is we only have 4 more to go. And these word problems are the same types of problems we've been doing. The only difference is they have words. So let's get to these real quick. Find the perimeter of the shape below. Now at this point you should know how to find perimeter. You should know what that means. Okay. At the end of this class, or actually right now, I want you to know what perimeter means, and when you finish this course, you need to know a certain number of geometric principles or geometric definitions. And so at this point you should really know what perimeter means, and there's no escaping that. I'm going to require that in my course. Because when you take tests, any kind of test outside this course, they're going to expect you just know perimeter. So let's go ahead and let's do this. So what is perimeter? Well, let's see here. Why don't you go ahead and do this problem yourself? And, well, you tell me, what is perimeter? I mean, think about that. What is perimeter? Obviously, you're just adding all the sides up. So you're just adding all these quantities. So go ahead and show your work though. You want to set it up properly. And go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. So let's go ahead and set it up over here if we have enough room. So 1 1/3 plus 2, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's the sum. And let's go ahead and let's get a common denominator with the, I'm going to put a little divider here. Get a common denominator. Oh, whoops. That's not the common denominator. The common denominator, what in the world would the common denominator be? I think it's going to be 36. So we had to do something that was beyond our multiplication facts there. I don't know if you caught that. Whoops. Forgot to put a plus sign there. Sorry, I'm putting these numbers kind of too close to each other. Sorry about that. All right, let's see here. Yep, that looks right. So now we just add them all together. Add all the whole numbers. 1 plus 2 plus 2 is 5. And then 12, 36 plus 32 plus 37. That's 42, 52, 59, 69, 71. 71 over 36. But we've got a problem here. If you leave it like this, then you're going to get a point taken off. Because this is an improper fraction. So you have to write you have to peel off. Well, we're just going to convert this improper fraction to a mixed number. So you remember how to do that? How many times does 36 go into 72? I think it goes 1 time. So you take you just put your 1. Then how many are left over? 36 times 1 is 36. What is the remainder? I think it's 35. The remainder goes up there. 31 plus 4. Just checking my work here. So that looks good. So all I did was just change this improper fraction to a mixed number. And I had to put the plus sign because remember that this is abbreviated notation. There is no plus sign in between there. So I went ahead and added that. And of course, now at this point, it's really easy. 5 plus that is just 6. And 35, 36. Now, if you just leave your answer like that, you're going to get a point off also. Remember, this is a word problem, so you have to put 6 and 35 over 36 feet. If you don't write feet, you're going to get a point off on your test. So if you got 6 and 35 over 36 feet, good job. If you didn't, go back and see what you did wrong. And we're going on to the next problem. All right, so why don't you go ahead and try 85. Pause the video, and when you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. If you want to just fast forward and see my answer, go ahead and do that, but I'm going to go ahead and work the problem now. Linda jumped 3 1/4 feet, and Mary jumped 5 3/10 feet. How much farther did Mary jump? So obviously Mary jumped farther. So how do you figure this out? Well, obviously you're just going to subtract. So 5 3/10 minus 3 1/4. Let's see here. So let's get a common denominator. Common denominator is the lowest common denominator is actually going to be 20. So you may have chosen 40. That'll work, but the lowest common denominator will be 20. It's always easiest to work with the lowest common denominator. And then we have so on and so forth. All right, so 5 minus 3 is 2, and 6 minus 5 is 1. Now, if you just write that as your answer, you're going to get a point taken off, right? What do we have to do? We have to say she jumped 2 1/20 feet farther. So you have to put your feet. So if you got the correct answer, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, that's okay. Just look and see what you did wrong. Just double checking my work on that. Seems right. All right, why don't you try 86? When you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. Charlie ate 3 4/9 slices of pizza, and Mark ate blah, blah, blah. I don't need to read it because you've already read it, I guess. How much pizza do they eat in total? So total means they just want you to add them up. So go ahead and write your, let's see. So we need a common denominator. All right. So now ready, 5 plus 3 is 8. 3/18 plus 8/18 is 11/18, and there you go. Now if you rectangle that and put that as your answer, you're going to get a point off. You have to say 8 11/18 slices. How do I know what we were finding? How did I know to write slices? Well, that's what they're asking. How much pizza, and they're measuring everything in slices, so the answer's got to be in slices. So now 87, let's read it together. A store reduced the price of an item from $8 $8.25 to $6 7/8. A store reduced the price of an item from $8 $8.25 to $6 7/8. How much money will customers save? So they're reducing the price. How much do you save? So what do you do here? What do you think? Pause the video, attempt this problem. When you come back, we'll do it together. All right, we're back. So in order to figure out how much you save, I mean, if you're trying to buy something for $50 and they reduce the price to 40, how do you figure out how much you save? Well, obviously you subtract. So it's going to be 6 7/8 minus, oh wait, sorry, that's the wrong way. First you write 8 2/5 minus 6 7/8, get a common denominator. So write our 8 and 6. So we have a common denominator. All right, so 8 minus 6 is 2. Oh, whoops. We can't do that. This is different. We can't subtract 35 from 16. So on this one, we have to do the borrowing method. So borrow 1 from 8, and it becomes 7. And the one that we borrowed from 8, we're going to transform that one into a special form, 40 over 40, because we're going to add the 1 to 16 40ths. So we have to change the 1 whole to 40 40ths. Again, because 40 40ths is 1 whole. So 40 40ths plus 16 40ths is 56 40ths. And now that we borrowed from the 8, now we can go ahead and subtract 35 over 40, whereas before we couldn't. All right, just double checking my work here. So 7 minus 6 is 1, and 56 minus 35. be 21 over 40. And yep, that looks right. So how much money will customers save? If you write that as the answer, you're going to get a point taken off, because they're asking how much money did the customer save. So you got to write $, and then you rectangle that, and that's your final answer. All right, so if you got the correct answer, pat yourself on the back. If you didn't, that's okay. Go back and see what you did wrong. So that was kind of a long class today. We did a lot of problems. We did 87 problems. You and I should get a medal for that. So that was class 14 or whatever class this is. Yeah, class 14. So this is the homework. Remember, if you don't do the homework, you're wasting your time in this entire course. Homework is 75% of this course. You cannot get away from doing the homework. You will learn nothing if you don't do the homework. So go ahead and take a screenshot of these first 2 pages, and then take a screenshot of these 2 pages. There's only 3 pages, and as you can see, you have the answers for every single problem. On this homework, I'm giving you 29 problems. Again, I promised that I wouldn't give less than 15 and I wouldn't give more than 30. So we have quite a few homework problems, but it's not going to be too bad. So remember to keep your homework in your binder, keep it orderly, write name, date, arithmetic, course title, number, circle the number of the problem. Keep your work orderly, show your work all as you see here. Your work should look exactly like this. All right, and so I'll look forward to seeing you in the next class, and I'm proud of you that you got through all that. That was quite a few problems. The next class will be multiplying and dividing mixed numbers. So I'll see you then.